All right, thank you guys so much for joining us today. We're so excited to have you all here. We're here at this webinar talking about the year-end process for Business Central, and we're also going to do some talking about the 1099s, which are new for the 2025 tax year. So hopefully this is what you're here for, and we're ready to jump right in. We'll talk a little bit about Trendsoft for just a minute, and then we'll jump right into our demo and we'll talk about how to close out the year in Business Central. So a few little housekeeping things. We do have a Q&A feature, which is enabled here on the Zoom webinar today. And I have a colleague who's working with me, and he will help answer those questions. And if we have to jump in and answer them live, we'll do that. But otherwise, we'll just type in an answer there and be able to share the answer with you guys there. And we are doing a recording, so if you're interested in a copy of this, then please put your email address in that Q&A, and then we'll make sure that you can that you'll have a copy of our recording today. So I'm guessing most of you who are here are in charge of doing the end of year processing in Business Central for your organization or your company. So hopefully what we go over today will be helpful to you. It's really not too bad in Business Central compared to some other software out there. So we have a few steps we want to go over and just remind you about what to do. And then the 1099 process has changed a little bit this year. So we really want to make sure that we cover that for you all. So um, let me just jump in here and cover. My name's David, and I work on the sales team here at Trendsoft. And I got my number here. I'll put this up at the very end as well. You can always catch us at trendsoft.com as well and fill out one of our need help forms or something like that. Trendsoft as a company has been around for almost 30 years. We're going to celebrate 30-year anniversary next year. We've been a Microsoft Solutions partner from the very beginning. We're consistently one of the top 100 value-added resellers for Microsoft. We're actually a direct cloud service provider for them. So there's a lot of titles there, but we work very, very closely with Microsoft and consider ourselves experts in Business Central and other licensing and other pieces of our Microsoft world. We've got hundreds of clients in lots of different places, and we actually do a lot of custom development as well. Some companies are just selling licenses, but we do, if you're one of our current clients, you already know this, but we do a lot of custom development as well. So we love doing that for people. I like to talk about support. We consistently get really high marks for support. So if you see something today that you need help with, then please contact us, and we'll be able to help you out in any way we can. All right. So there you go. There's my intro slides. I wanted to keep that nice and short for you all, and we're going to jump into our live demo. I've got one more slide I'm going to show you later. So here we are in Business Central. So I'm guessing that this is all familiar. We're not going to go over the basics of Business Central today. We're really talking about the end of year process. But first thing I want to point out is we're in a sandbox environment. And I know it's a little small on your screen probably, but this top right-hand side says sandbox. And we really do encourage you to use a sandbox environment to test this year-end process before you do anything else. If you don't have a sandbox environment, then please contact us. We can help you get that set up. If you're one of our current clients, you probably have it already set up because we would have done that for you. But it's always good to do this and practice in your sandbox so that you're not playing around with real data and real numbers. I think that always makes a lot of sense. So please double check that you're in the sandbox environment to do your testing. So first thing we want to look at is the chart of accounts. So we're going to click through here and just do a quick overview. Of course, there's a lot of data here and a lot of different accounts represented, but we want to do a quick scroll through. This is all sample data, so yours is going to look obviously different than this. You might have more or less accounts here, but do a quick just glance at the numbers and the different settings here. One of the things I would say you want to check is if you did find an account that something might be out of the ordinary, you can open up that account. For example, very important to know, is this on the income statement side or the balance sheet side? So make sure that you're checking that, and you can also make that change. So before you go to close the year, you'll want to make sure all this is in the right spot. So it's definitely worth your time to double check and put everything in the right category and make sure all these settings are correct. So do a scroll through there, make sure that things don't look out of place. All right. So one other thing that we're going to do, the second thing we're going to do we are going to look at our user setup and our general ledger setup. So on the general ledger setup, there's a lot of features here, but we're really just going to look at one piece, which is this allow posting from and allow posting to. So what we want to do here is set these dates, and I can click the pencil at the top. Set these dates to allow posting from and to the next year, or the year that I want people to be posting in. So I always think of, back in school days, I would always write the wrong year for the first like 2 weeks of the year, and we don't want people to make that type of mistake with real numbers in your Business Central. So this will prevent anyone from picking the wrong date when they're posting. So make sure you choose the first of the year, and of course we're still in December, but I would just choose January 1st, and I put in the dates to the end of December of 2026. So I'm going to put the allow posting from, allow posting to dates in here. And that's the system settings, more or less. That's really the way I think about that. Now you have one other place you can do that, that you can make changes here, and that would be under user setup. And so one of the nice things about user setup is, here we go. This actually allows my users to have posting rights outside of the normal range. So this setting actually supersedes the system setting. So for example, myself, if I want myself to be able to go in, I can go in and edit this list. And I can go in and make a change for myself. All right. So I would pick that user, I would allow posting from and to, and that actually lets that user make a change, even if the general settings on the page that I just showed you are different. So we want to make sure that we check this as well. So I might want to go back to something and post something in a December date, but I don't want everybody to have that right. So the general setting here is under general ledger setup, and then user setup is where the individual settings would be. So if I go to user setup, I would go in and edit that list, and then I would make those changes. All right. So chart of accounts, we've checked that. General ledger setup, we've checked that. User setup, another place to check. Now we're going to look at the inventory periods, and you might not be using inventory, but it's something that is important for you to check. So now, again, this is sample data. I don't have all the different inventory periods in here, but if you're using inventory periods, you may have inventory periods like for the entire year, you might have one per month. So I want to make sure that those are closed. I can see close period here on my menu bar. If your screen's a little smaller, which I was playing with just a second ago, if your screen's a little smaller, you might not see close period, and then you'd see it under the ellipses right there. So if you go to close period, you would see those, you're able to close that year or that set of, the 2025 inventory periods. And of course, I need to set up the new one, so I can go into new and I can create those new periods I just put one in here as an example, but I would go in there and put those in. So inventory periods, I've got to close out my old ones, and I've got to put in my new inventory periods, and I make those one by one. So closely related to that are the accounting periods, but more important. If I go into accounting periods, I can see all of my previous accounting periods, and you'll see some of these are grayed out because those are closed. Those are previous years. And now in my case here, I can pick any of these that are in and I know the dates are a little bit off in the system, but it's just for example, but I can pick any of these and then I can close that year. So under this home menu, I can choose close year, and then it will close all of that year, all those accounting periods for that year. Of course, I need to create the new year as well. So if I'm doing my year in process, I need the accounting periods for the year that the new year that I'm working in. So I would just go in, I would create a start date there, January 1st, 2026. And normally I'm going to have a 12-month period there, and then the period length would be 1 month, and that would be the typical way I would have that set up. All right. So I'm actually going to cancel this because I've already made some of these just in preparation for our webinar today, but I wanted you to see how that's set up. So create the new fiscal year, starting date, number of periods 12, 1 month is the period length, and then I'm going to create that, and then it's just going to populate right here on this list. All right. Okay, so those are the big pieces that need to be done before I can do this closed income statement. And the closed income statement is the final piece before we get to 1099s, the final piece that I want to talk about. So I've looked at my chart of accounts. I've looked at my user setup to make sure they can post or not post during certain periods of time. I've looked at my different accounting periods and inventory periods. Now I'm going to close income statement. So when I choose closed income statement, I get this dialog box with quite a few options. We're going to look at what some of these mean here, just to help you out. And when you click it, it might be blank for you if you haven't set anything else up already. So you might have some blanks here, but I want to just cover kind of what these are. So fiscal year ending date, of course, that's the end of the previous year. And then general journal template, I'm going to choose general 99.9% of the time. And then the general journal batch, what we like to recommend is that you create your own batch. When you're running this closed income statement, if you put this in another batch, then you might get your results confused with someone else's. It's a little hard to find. So we like to recommend just make your own, and I've already made one called fiscal year 2025. I might call it year end or something like that, but just some way, I've got another example here, just some way to differentiate um, the closed income statement. And so it automatically is generating a number here for me. I can type anything I want. I can do year end 2025, and that helps me find each of those entries later on. So if I just have a generic number, I might kind of it might be a little more difficult to find that if I'm doing a search later. So I always like to make it something that's memorable and kind of use the same pattern year after year. So that's the document number. That's where that goes. Retained earnings, of course, that's where all that net income goes. And so I can choose the account right here where those retained earnings go, and I can just choose from the drop-down box and pick whichever one. And of course, that might not be your number, but that's the number we have in here just as an example. So now the next option is, how do I want these things to be posted? So I can either post detail or I can post the whole balance. And the balance is just going to be one number that says we're closing the year, here's the number. And then details is going to provide quite a bit more detail about each of the account lines. So that's really up to you. In our example today, I've just chosen balance just so that there's one number to deal with. Um, so posting description, I can put anything I want here. And as we'll see in just a minute, when I look at those, each of those lines, I will see this description here. So again, it's just a way for me to stay organized and be able to find something this has the certain description. So in Business Central, I know that some of you guys are using dimensions, and dimensions are a way to differentiate in kind of another layer where you can have business that works in just one dimension, just another layer in Business Central. So I can actually turn this on and I can close by dimension if I want to. And so if I choose from this selection area, and I can pick the dimension I want to close. So I can literally just close one part of my business group if I have it set up that way. All right. So I'm going to go there, and I will not turn that on here. In fact, I'm not actually going to run this because I've already run it, and I've got an example to show you. But I can go and close just by one dimension there. All right. Just don't forget you need to close by your other dimensions later on if that's how you have things set up. All right. Okay, so I'm canceling that, and I am going to show you on the general journal side what one of these looks like. All right, and again, I mentioned batches before, so on the batch side, I might have to choose a different batch in order to see, but I've already been in here today. So if I look at this batch, I can see the dates, the entries here for the closed income statements, and if I scroll, I can see the amounts, and I've got that in there's the description that we looked at earlier, the account where it's posting and all sort of things. So I can just post it from right here, and then I am finished with that side of things in the closed income statement. All right. So I want you to see the process there. We went to that chart of accounts. We went to the setup to make sure people could post at the right times or not post at the wrong times. We looked at our inventory and accounting periods. We did that closed income statement, and then we just looked at the general journal so you could see where that is and where we post it. All right. So that's it for the main Business Central end of year process. And I am going to jump back over and show you, bring that up. I'm going to jump back over and show you just a few things about the 1099 process. All right. Some of the things that are new this year. So there's no more pre-printed forms. And we're printing on blank paper. We're sending PDFs. Those are the two things that we can do. I mean, we can actually host them somewhere. People have access through another system that also works. But 10 or more records, mandatory electronic filing. You can see the IRS is pushing everyone towards that. And so that's any record at all. It doesn't have to be just 1099s, just anything that you're submitting. That's the total of all of the records you're submitting. So mandatory electronic filing, that means most of us are going to be electronically filing. One of the biggies is this direct integration with the IRS portal, the IRS portal, which is actually called Iris. So I think that's kind of fun that the IRS portal has Iris. They sound very similar. So you can deliver 1099 forms through email. You can have them accessible through any like a private website or something like that, or another tool. But there is a little button to get consent in there from your vendors so that they have to consent to be able to receive not the paper version, but the electronic version. Of course, we're not using the 1096 forms. That was kind of the cover sheet for the paper submissions in the past. And one of the nice things is you'll see in just a minute in our mock-up here, you get great feedback, instant feedback if there's any mistakes. So it's not like you have to mail everything off and see if there's any problems. You get quick feedback as well. So it really helps. And it saves some time and money. You don't have to print all these PDFs and send them out. So all right, 1099s in Business Central for 2025. Let's have a look. So the first thing I'm going to show you is in feature management. We're on version 27 here. If you're using a different version, so anything older than version 27, you would actually turn that on here. And because I'm using version 27, you don't see it, but you just search here for 1099 and you would see that feature and turn it on the feature management page. That just is like the new 1099 settings and setup. That's where you would turn that on. But we're on 27, so it's on by default. So there's not an option to turn it off there. All right, the second thing I want to show you in 1099 for the 2025 year is this assisted setup. And on the assisted setup page, there's actually a lot of assisted setup wizards here. If you're not used to using that, then you should definitely have a look because there's quite a few assisted setup wizards that really help you with certain things in Business Central. But today we're just going to do a search for IRS. And this IRS Forms feature is what we're going to look at. So if I click IRS Forms feature, I've already run this setup. So it gives me a little thing that says, you want to do this again? There's not a lot here to do, but after I've done this, it will automatically create for me the 1099 forms and the screens that we're going to look at here. So I just click next. I make sure the reporting year is correct. And then I have some options here that we're not going to go into, but you can protect the tax identification number on the forms and that kind of thing. Click next, and then I'm going to finish. All right. When I've done that, and I'm exiting because I've actually already done that. When I've done that, I get all those 1099 screens and forms that are enabled in Business Central. All right. So I want to show you just a few other things here related to the setup of the 1099. Once I've done those pieces, I've turned on the feature, I've done the assisted setup, I'm going to go in and check a vendor. All right, I'm just going to show you an example. I'm going to pick one of our vendors from the top of the list. And I want you to look at the payments section. All right. And I'm showing you this because you'll get errors later on in the 1099 process if these are not complete. So I need the federal tax ID number in here, and I have to choose the correct reporting period and which form number I'm using for this vendor. This is the consent button I was referring to earlier. So this button is on. That means an email will get sent to this this vendor. And I do have to turn that on. And this is a little slider. I can just say, yes, I have gotten consent from fabricam.com to send them their 1099 electronically. That's what that one is. And this is the email that is used when sending, which you'll see here in just a minute. So I want you to look at that page and have an idea of what that looks like. You would want to check all the vendors that you're going to send 1099s for. Just make sure these are filled out beforehand, because otherwise you're going to run into some issues there. So be sure you're checking those. And we are going to look at the IRS forms setup for just a minute. I want you to see this screen. And again, this is all created and enabled when we turned on that feature. If you're running version 26, it was automatically on because we're on version 27. So this is not a lot to see on the screen, but this is where you would set up your IRS user ID. And if you click this button, there is another screen here, which we're not going to go into a lot of detail about, but there is a button here that tells you how to set up your IRS user ID with the IRS. And you're provided this client ID and you put in your IRS ID, and this is how you make your connection to the IRS. Now, this is sample data, and we don't have this truly enabled because we don't want to send the IRS a bunch of fabricam.com vendor 1099s. That would not be fun. They probably wouldn't like that either. So we've got some sample data in here, and you'll see as we click through, there's going to be one or two things that say, that the data didn't get sent, but because we have that just set up as a demo. All right. The other thing I want to show you on the screen is the email content setup. And this is by default in here from the authors of Business Central. You can change this if you want. It basically says, I hope you're well, and here's your 1099. And so you can make changes to that, but this is the template that gets used when you send 1099s electronically to your vendors. All right. So we're going to jump into the IRS 1099 form documents page, and this is where we're going to do a fair amount of our work for the last few minutes of our 1099 talk. On this screen, you would see more information here, but I just have one sample vendor in here just as an example for you guys. But I wanted you to have a look at this page and see how the IRS transmissions work and that sort of thing. So I've got one entry here. I'm going to choose IRS transmissions first. Let's just jump right in and show you that. And when I choose create IRS transmission, it's ready to go. All right. So reporting period 2025. If I click OK, I've already been playing with this a bit. So yes, I can replace it. And I get a message that says there's one of these miscellaneous boxes which is not reported. If I click yes, it is going to create this IRS transmission so that it's ready to send. All right. So there's a few other things I want to show you here. There is transmission history, and that will give us a report, but you're not going to see anything on that screen because we're not actually sending to the IRS today. But you would get a report there that says, yes, you submitted 1099s on this date and it was successful or not successful. And you would get some information there as well. All right. So if I click into on our IRS transmission into this 2025, I would see more lines here. All right. But again, I just have one as a sample in here today. I can send right here. And if I do click send and I say yes, I am going to get an error. So I guess I probably don't need to show you that, but I will not send that right now. Transmission history, again, I can see that here as well. And so you can also see that it says test mode here as well, so that they know that we're not fully connected to the IRS, but I wanted you to see what that looks like there. All right. So we're back on the IRS 1099 form document page. I'm going to open this up, and we're going to have a look at the lines that are on this document. This is basically the electronic 1099. I can see vendor email. That's the same field from the vendor that I was looking at earlier as well. And this is enabled because I have that turned on the Fabricam vendor contact card as well. So I can do a few different things on this screen. I've already released these, so I can reopen them if I want to make changes or something like that. I can send here. And as you saw earlier, I showed you the template that Business Central uses. And so it would use that template and it would just send that message right there. So if I click OK, I am going to get a little bit of an error because I don't have all that set up to send, but I can send a message, or I mean, I can send this 1099 directly to the vendor right here as well. All right, I can choose print, and oops, I think I need to turn it. I need to release it here before it'll print. There we go. So if I choose print and I choose send to PDF, it is going to create a PDF file for me, and there's the sample version that I can see right there. All right. Again, sample data just so you know what's happening there. All right. Okay, so I wanted you to make sure that you saw this screen so you can see how to print, because that's the thing people are used to, being able to print or send through through email. But this send email feature and the print feature are both still there, and they're sitting here on this specific screen when I'm in this 2025 document here as well. All right. So if I'm back on this page under actions, I can reopen these if I need to make changes. If I need to make a change for the IRS, I can go in and say allow correction. And once I've said allow correction, I can go back into that particular vendor's 1099 form document, make the correction I need to make, and then I can resubmit. All right. So we're not going to go through that whole part of the process today, but I wanted you to see that you can reopen the 1099 form document, and then you can make a correction, and then you can send it back to the IRS. All right. And we have a transmission history here as well. Now, the last thing I want to show you on this page is send email. So if you would imagine, I would have a whole long list of vendors with lots of different 1099s created here. If I click send email on this side, it is going to send that whole batch. All right. Instead of being in one of the lines here, the 1099s, if I click send email here, it sends that entire batch, and it's ready to go, and we'll end up going to the client based on the email that you have set up on the vendor card, which I showed you before. All right. Okay, those are the basic procedures. Let me just review real quickly. The first piece of what we did, we looked at that chart of accounts. We went to the users and we tried to, or we did set up according to, what date we want people to be able to post on, from and to. And then we went to the user setup and we said, we want to allow one or two users maybe to post in the previous year, so we can change that range just for those users. If we have inventory, we're changing our inventory periods. Accounting periods was very important. We had to make sure that all that is set up correctly, that the year is closed properly. And then we ran the closed income statement. So that was the end of the first half of our session today. So closed income statement. And then we jumped into 99s. All right. We looked at how to turn on the feature if you're running 26 or older. And actually, if you're not sure, you can go over to Copilot and you can ask Copilot right up here in the top right-hand corner, what version of Business Central am I on? And it'll actually tell you that. So, so if you're using an older version, you need to turn on that feature. And then we ran the assisted setup and enabled the 1099 form documents. The old way, the 2024 way, does not work anymore. Some of those screens are still there. Some of those pages are still there, but Business Central will tell you use the new IRS 1099 form documents, because I know that from practicing and looking at a few of those older pages, and they all said, nope, you can't use this page anymore, use the new page. So once that assisted setup is done, you want to double check your vendors, make sure that all their information is correct on the vendor card, that the 1099 fields are all correct and the tax ID numbers are all in there. Look at the 1099 form documents and process those as well. There's quite a few things to do on that page. That's where we did our transmission to the IRS. And we set up our relationship with Iris, the IRS online system. Now, if you're still using an on-prem version of Business Central, you can use the FHIR files and upload those, but that's a slightly different system. I think majority of people are on cloud-based, so that's really what we're talking about today. But if you happen to be using that, that is still there. for them. So there you go. Those are the basic processes that you need to do for the year end in Business Central. I hope that you're going to save some time. Hopefully, our webinar has been very helpful to you. If you need help with this, if there's pieces that you just say, look, that's a lot, and that is that I'm confused, I need some help, or just I'm stuck on this one piece, we're here to help. So I'm going to jump back over to my final slide just so you have my contact information. And on this page, you've got my Trinsoft.com. You have that's my direct number and my email, but you can always go to Trinsoft.com and get help there. But we love helping people with this end of year process and anything with Business Central. So we're definitely here to help you all. Pride ourselves on great support. And hopefully you've learned a little bit about end of year process and 1099s. If you have any questions, please let us know. And thank you so much for joining us today. And I will check my colleague here and see if there were any unanswered questions. Let me just go quickly over there and have a look, see if anything showed up. All right, I don't see any open questions there, so nothing to answer on air, but you know how to get in touch with us, so please be in touch. And thank you all so much for joining us today, and have a great holiday season.